All right, here's our quick little video about Pythagorean theorem. So we're talking about using the Pythagorean theorem. So remember, Pythagorean theorem helps you solve for missing sides. So notice we're not talking about angles at all. We're just talking about sides here. And it only works in right triangles. We're going to learn how to solve non-right triangles in a few weeks. But right now, we're just brushing up on right triangles for a minute. Okay, so for Pythagorean theorem, if you remember, I think most of you do, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we need to talk about what those a, b, and c are. So a and b, in no particular order, are these two legs. And the legs are the two sides that they come together to create the right angle. The side across from the right angle is called the c. Why did I say that? It is c. It's called the hypotenuse, which you probably remember that word. And the hypotenuse, so remember, it's across from the right angle. And if you think about what we've been doing, that should kind of make sense. Remember, the biggest side, see, the hypotenuse is the longest side, so let's take a second to write that down. And it is the longest side because if we undraw our tornado here, it's across from the biggest angle. That's what makes it the longest side there. So let's do two quick examples about how to use Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so in our first example here, anytime we're doing Pythagorean theorem, we want to go ahead and label our sides first. And C is the most important side. So we need to identify the hypotenuse. So I see my right angle is up here. And if you draw your little tornado out, if you need to there, let's see if we draw our little tornado out, that's going to make C this long side 10 on the other side. A and B don't matter. It doesn't matter what you put in each of those. So my formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to set this up. A is x squared plus my b is 5, so plus 5 squared equals 10 squared. Now to work this out, we're going to use our calculator, or hopefully your brain, if you can think about that. 5 squared just means 5 times 5, so this is 25. 10 squared means 10 times 10, so that's 100. All right, then we're going to subtract 25 because we want to get x squared by itself. So this is x squared equals 75. And then our last step is going to have to be to take the square root so that x is by itself. So when you do that, you're going to get approximately 8.66. And I'm going to say approximately, which approximate is this two little squiggle marks, all right? I'm going to say approximately because this is not a perfect answer. I'm having to round that because it's some big decimal. All right, and then you just want to make sure that that makes sense, right? Does it make sense that this side would be 8.66? And basically, you just don't want to get a number bigger than what you already said the biggest side was. All right, let's do another one. On this one, I'm going to put an X here. I didn't do that to begin with. All right, so again, we're going to start with the hypotenuse first. So my hypotenuse is across from the right angle. A and B, you can label those any way you want to. So 8 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. Use a calculator or your brain, you're going to get 64 plus 36 equals c squared. This time I can add these two together because they're on the same side of the equal sign. So I'm going to combine like terms. It's going to give me 100. Then we're going to take the square root. And hopefully you remember that the square root of 100 is 10. So again, we just want to make sure that that's reasonable. Does it make sense that this side, being the longest side, would be 10? And hopefully you're saying yes, because 10 is longer than both 8 and 6. So that's why that kind of checks itself out. All right, let's look at one more that's just a little bit more confusing, but your calculator can help you do most of the work on this problem. Okay, so to begin with, this is going to look a little more complicated, but we're going to start and do the same thing. The first thing we want to do is label the hypotenuse. That's C. That's the one across from the right angle. And then we're going to do our A and our B. All right, so I'm going to set this up the same way I would. A, because it's like this whole number, I'm going to put it in parentheses. 2 square root 3 squared plus square root of 2 squared equals x squared. Okay, so you can use your calculator to type this in, and I'll show you exactly what I'm typing in. Okay, so notice I type in even the parentheses and that the exponent, see how this exponent is on the outside of the parentheses? Make sure it's always on the outside or it'll give you the wrong answer. And this one gave me 12. All right, so that means this whole thing equals 12. If I do the same thing on the other one, I'm going to get 2. And that equals x squared. So when you add this together, we're combining like terms again because they're on the same side of the equation. That's going to give you 14 equals x squared. And then we just need to take the square root. And now this time I want to show you, if you use your calculator, you're going to get, to take the square root, you're going to get the x is approximately. Don't forget to take a note, by the way, that this stands for approximately, which means about but not exact, okay? So the x is approximately 3.74. You can do that, but notice that in our original problem we had square roots in the answer, or in the sides, which means we can leave square roots in the answer. So on this one, we can actually just say that x equals the square root of 14 since it doesn't give us a pretty number. And this is going to be an example of the exact answer. It's not rounding a decimal, it's exactly what it should be, which is the square root of 14. All right, so have those notes and we'll work on this tomorrow.